Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Michelle.
Nice to have you back. You know the drill as well, don't you, about Dewbs Co? It's not just about us three. It's very much about you guys at home tonight. What's on your mind? Get in touch with me the usual ways. GBViews at gbnews.uk is my email, or if Twitter's more your thing, you can tweet me at GBNews. Lots of you getting in contact already. A quick reminder, I want to talk to you about Liz Truss, mega prisons. Do you think we need more of them? I definitely do. Oliver, oh, you're in Hull, actually, Ollie, good man. You've asked a question, and I think it's quite a good one. You say, never mind prisons, Michelle, why don't we reintroduce the death penalty? Well, I'll put that to my panel a bit later on in the programme. Somebody who has asked to be kept anonymous says, I am a prison officer, and the new mega prisons would be impossible to manage. They're short-staffed prisons currently, and the ones we already have are run by the prisoners. Let me ask you this, though. I won't use your name. You've asked to be kept anonymous. You're saying at the moment mega prisons won't work because staffing issues. Well, what about if we sorted out the staffing there? Would you be in favour of them then? And a little quick nod to what I would call one of my most dedicated viewers tonight, Richard, because he says, I am watching tonight from the Bayside in Singapore. You say you won't miss Dewbs Co wherever you go. Richard, you are a man of style, and I like it. I like your style. I might make a note of you. You might get an award towards the end of the year as being one of my most dedicated viewers. Where else are you watching it from? Singapore, I have to say, it will take some beating. Right, let's talk dangerous dogs, shall we? Lots of you have been in touch about this one already. Some of you saying there's no such thing as a dangerous dog. There is just such thing as a dangerous, incompetent owner. Do you agree with that sentiment? The reason I picked this one tonight is because, I mean, let's face it, we seem to be hearing so much more now about dog attacks, people being killed by dogs. You will have known, for example, a little 4-year-old very recently in her own back garden. You had the lady that was walking, I think it was 8 dogs that had all the bites to her neck. She very sadly died. And last year, to be clear, was the deadliest on record for dog attacks. 10 of them were recorded. Thousands upon thousands, about 9,000 people end up in hospital because of dog attacks as well per year. Quick quiz for you, if you're watching at home, and don't Google the answer, because in a minute I'm going to ask my panel if it's time to bring back dog licences. But before I do, a question for you guys at home. Do you know how much the dog licence previously cost? Don't Google it, just off the top of your head, if you know the answer to that. I was astonished when I found out. Anyway, Kevin Craig, dangerous dogs. What do we do about them? Or dogs generally, actually? Should we have a licence for all dogs in this country?
Well, I'm going to admit something embarrassing, Michelle. Oh. We had a dog until I was 16. I'm 51 now. And when I found out recently that you didn't need a licence to have a dog, I was shocked, right? I was completely unaware. Do I think that licences, the specific issue here in these terrible attacks, none of the dogs were banned breeds, and it's unknown why they turned on the walker. So I'm not sure that licensing would solve the problem. But do I think that we should licence dog ownership? Yes, I do. I think it's a really big responsibility. I think it would be better for the country. It would encourage people to be responsible. And I'm not suggesting we go as far as the Netherlands. Guess how much for one dog in the Netherlands?
Well, I know the answer to that because I've got it in front of me.
Okay.
So if I do it, it'll spoil the question there.
What I didn't realise, €128 for one dog, €330 for 2, or €586 for 3 dogs, right? Mm. So it's done differently elsewhere. Now, not all viewers...
And they do a yearly tax, by the way, as well, on top of that.
On top of that,
yes.
Right. So in other countries, you know, it's done differently. I don't think licensing itself will stop the terrible attacks that have happened recently. But do I think we should have licences for dog ownership? I think it would be a very good consideration.
Do you agree, Lord Moylan?
I've always, in the last 30 years, kept out of arguments and debates about dogs because I've found, in local governments
Daniel, well, those days are about to change.
They are about to change, but I found that there are 2 types of people who are interested in debates about dogs. People who absolutely hate dogs and dog poo, and people who are completely bonkers in favour of dogs. not necessarily dog poo, but in favour of dogs. And there's nobody in the middle. And whatever you say, you're going to be, watch out, Kevin, you are going to be monstered on Twitter tonight once people have heard what you have to say. But I do think that the old dog licence...
You can take it. He's got a thick
The
skin
old
as well,
dog licence, which when I was young cost, I think, 2 shillings and sixpence or something like that, Michelle. I don't know if that's the right answer you've got written
No, I
down.
want it in pence now. We've moved on from shillings. Pence is my question.
The old dog licence did no good whatsoever, and people... 40% apparently of people, only 40% of people who should have had a dog licence actually had one. Most people were like Kevin, criminals who weren't operated, didn't have a dog licence when he was a youth. He's just admitted it on television. And I hope that, like Rishi, the fine arrives very shortly just for admitting that. But never mind. The point is that that system did no good. What Kevin is suggesting, indicating, in the Dutch system, would have to be coupled with some sort of training, some sort of... for the owners.
Yeah.
And I can see the argument for that, but actually delivering it against the backlash that Kevin is now going to see evidence of on his Twitter feed tonight, and you might, is going to be almost impossible, because people will feel that they are responsible dog owners without the need for having to go on a government course. I personally, you ask my personal views, I think that in cities, at least, it is often quite cruel, and I don't understand why it is that people have dogs as pets.
Wow.
And I really wonder whether...
You're going to get monstered.
Yeah, they
And I will get monstered.
Stand back, my friend.
I will get monstered as well now. But, I mean, a budgerigar I can about see. Goldfish, yes. But really, you know, do you need, in the city, if you're living in a flat, do you really need... a dog? Is it good for the dog? Is it good for you?
Oh, I can hear the viewers at home. They're shouting at you.
Can I say one thing, Michelle? Daniel's, I think Daniel's the one who's... Because I like dogs, for the record, Daniel. But what I was really fascinated about was that without a licensing system, there's no insurance in place. So in terms of some of the consequences of attacks, what is interesting is recently some of the attacks, when the owners have been prosecuted, they've got no means to make up to the victims. A licensing scheme, responsibly done, sensitively done, would offer more redress to people who were the victims of attacks.
But can't you tie that into this
licensing
micro...
and insurance.
But, yeah, can't you tie that into this microchip thing that all the dogs have got to have? Couldn't you put a form of insurance, mandatory insurance, on that?
You'd have thought if it was possible, it would have been done by now, and yet we don't know how many dogs there are in the country. Despite the microchipping requirement, as I understand it, nobody knows how many dogs there are in the UK.
Yeah, there's not a central database.
Yeah, which just seems surprising, I think.
But you know what would happen if you had to have compulsory insurance of dogs? I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you know what would happen? The breeds would get ranked by the insurer according to how risky they were. And the premium for an Alsatian or whatever, would be off the scale. So everybody would end up with Shih Tzus and Poodles, and that's all you get, a monoculture of dog ownership. I mean, are you happy to live with that?
But don't you want to dissuade people from having the more dangerous types of dogs?
Well, that may be what you want to do, but what is the point of having a country which is just a country of Shih Tzu owners? You know.
I just think he wants to say that as many times as
I know, yeah. You're quite enjoying saying that.
No, I think it's an enjoyable topic. I wouldn't dissent to that.
Do you have a dog? What do you think to what Daniel's just said? Daniel's basically saying it's a little bit cruel if you live in a city to have a dog. I'm not putting words into your mouth there, am I?
Not unfairly, no.
You know, what do you think to that? I don't have a dog. I must confess, I'm a little bit frightened of dogs. I was brought up by my dad to be wary of dogs, to cross the road. Yeah. If we ever saw a dog, we would be made to cross the road. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself to even be around dogs. They used to... I mean, now I can be around a dog, but if a dog started to bark, I would be very, very, very frightened indeed, which is not great, but...
Well, it's understandable, given your experiences as a child. But, I mean, I think this debate has to also hear that millions of people are made incredibly happy by their dogs' mental health. In big cities up and down this fine nation, Daniel, I think you're going to find a lot of people who say, we've got parks, we clean up after our dogs, we're responsible. And I think they would...
And you'd put them on a training course, wouldn't you? That's what you'd say to
No,
them.
I just think it's
ought to go on a training
Well,
course.
I think there's space for a discussion about...
And get insurance.
Well, I think there's a space for a discussion about licensing dog ownership, which is a really responsible thing. But I'm definitely not saying, you know, casting aspersions on dog owners generally, because many are really responsible and get a lot of happiness.
I think you should. If you buy a dog, you should have to sign something or whatever to say that you've been on mandatory dog training. Because the problem is, and it's coming through thick and fast on my inbox, a lot of you are saying this. Let me just cut to some of you guys. Graham, if I can get you up on screen, I do like to give you your moments of glory, if I can make that happen. Yes, there you go, your moment of fame. Graham says, the thing is with dogs, they become a fashion accessory and a complete nuisance to the peace and quiet. Cool a lot. Goodness me. That's a bit harsh, Graham. My viewers, my fellow viewers agree with that. David says it's nothing to do with licences or government intervention. Training and not treating dogs like children and humans is the answer. Jim, I'm not generally a fan of dogs, so yes, I think they should be licensed more strictly with an annual requirement of a vet check, like an MOT on a car. Goodness me, people that have got pets will say about the vet bills. David says prospective owners should be vetted as to the dog's well-being and all dogs should be licensed. An annual dog licence fee dependent on breed. Gloria